Good evening, and welcome to Election Night in America 2022. It is a momentous midterm election gauging American voters' opinions of Joe Biden's presidency and whether a shift in the balance of power is needed in the upper chamber. Tonight, voters in several battleground states will decide to reward or rebuke the current administration. The United States Senate has been split 50-50 between Democrats and Republicans following the runoffs in the Georgia regular and special Senate elections, with Vice President Kamala Harris breaking the tie in favor of the Democratic Party ever since her inauguration. 34 Senate seats are being contested tonight, consisting of 14 Democrats and 20 Republicans. And with that said, the first polls are now closing at 7 p.m. Eastern in several states, namely Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Vermont. And we expect to make a key race projection right now. Out of the state of Indiana, one-term Republican incumbent Todd Young will win re-election to another 6-year term. We project that Todd Young, the incumbent, will retain his seat in the state of Indiana. As for Kentucky, the notorious incumbent Senator Rand Paul is projected to win re-election to a third term in office. Finally, in South Carolina, Republican incumbent Tim Scott will be re-elected to a second and what he said would be his final term in office. Scott was first elected to this seat in 2016, garnering over 60% of the vote, and he is projected to win comfortably yet again. As for the Democratic Party in Vermont, Peter Welch, the only congressman serving from the state of Vermont since 2007, will be elected to his first term in the Senate. Welch will succeed the 8-term president pro tempore of the Senate, Patrick Leahy. As for the state of Georgia, this is a key race tonight that could play a pivotal role in which way the Senate swings. Incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock won this seat no less than 2 years ago in the runoff special election, and he faces former NFL running back Herschel Walker, who was endorsed by former President Donald Trump very early on in this race and won the Republican primary. Now let's take a look at what all of this means for the balance of power in the United States Senate. Despite 3 Republican wins here at this poll closing, the Democrats hold 37 seats to the Republicans' 33. We will be tracking how many seats each party picks up throughout the night, as given the current 50-50 split, any net positive gain will give one party a majority. We have now reached our second poll closing at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Polls are closing in 2 critical battleground states tonight, Ohio and North Carolina. And we have a key race alert coming in right now. The race in Ohio is too close to call between Democrat Congressman Tim Ryan and former Ohio State Treasurer and 2012 Republican Senate candidate Josh Mandel. 2-term sitting Republican Senator Rob Portman announced early in 2021 that he would not run for re-election, opening up the race on the Republican side and giving Democrats, well, a newfound hope in a state that they have lost by over 8 points in consecutive presidential elections. The state of North Carolina is also too close to call, as 3-term incumbent Richard Burr did not run for re-election, setting up a fierce Republican primary fight between former Governor Pat McCrory and Congressman Ted Budd. Ultimately, Budd won the Republican primary largely thanks to the endorsement of former President Donald Trump. On the Democratic side, former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, Cheri Beasley, cruised through the Democratic primaries. The RNC is extremely confident that they will hold on to both seats in Ohio and North Carolina tonight, despite being at a disadvantage with no incumbents. "8 p.m. is a major poll closing, with initial results expected in Alabama, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, Maryland, Missouri, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, and the Keystone State, both in name and practice, Pennsylvania. And we can project that 6-term Republican Congressman Mo Brooks will be elected to the Senate out of Alabama. succeeding six-term Republican incumbent Richard Shelby. The Republicans will also win in Oklahoma, where incumbent James Lankford will cruise to re-election and serve a second term. In Connecticut, two-term incumbent Richard Blumenthal is projected to win, defeating Republican lobbyist Robert Hyde. Blumenthal will serve another term out of Connecticut. And in the state of Illinois, Tammy Duckworth, another Democratic incumbent who is considered a possible VP pick for Joe Biden, will cruise to re-election against Republican Peggy Hubbard. Finally, in Maryland, Chris Van Hollen is projected to win and will serve a second term in office. That officially makes it 3 more Democratic wins and 2 more Republican wins. But as for the races that are too close or too early to call, in the state of Florida, Republican incumbent Marco Rubio is facing a challenge from former Democratic Congresswoman and once a potential VP candidate, Val Demings, although most polls have shown Rubio comfortably ahead of Demings coming into tonight. In Missouri, incumbent Republican Roy Blunt decided against running for re-election, and following a tumultuous primary campaign, controversial former Governor Eric Greitens secured the Republican nomination. On the other side, former state senator Scott Sifton defeated Marine veteran Lucas Kuntz in the Democratic primary. The state of New Hampshire is also too close to call, although incumbent Democrat Maggie Hassan has led Republican opponent Chuck Morse in every poll taken this cycle ever since Republican Governor Chris Sununu announced that he would not run for this seat. Hassan was first elected to the Senate by just a little over 1,000 votes in 2016. Lastly, in the state of Pennsylvania, one of the most important races in these midterms, incumbent Democrat Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman won a crowded Democratic primary in order to face Mehmet Oz, popularly known as Dr. Oz, or the host of the Dr. Oz show, who won the Republican primary after polling leader Sean Parnell dropped out of the running. Both parties have hyped up their chances in Pennsylvania, but Fetterman has led in most polls despite Oz's considerable fundraising advantage. Now, let's take a look at these races' implications on the national Senate race. Democrats are projected to win 3 more races, raising their total to 40, while Republican wins in Alabama and Oklahoma give them 35. On the nationwide map, Florida, Missouri, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania join Ohio, North Carolina, and Georgia as states that remain too close to call at this hour. The polls are also yet to close in 15 states, including the battlegrounds of Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada. It's 8:30 p.m. on the East Coast, and polls are closing in the state of Arkansas, but we have a couple of projections to make right now. John Boozman is projected to retain his seat in the state of Arkansas. The 2-term Republican incumbent won with about 60% of the vote in 2016 and is likely to exceed that total tonight. We can also project that in Missouri, former Republican Governor Eric Greitens is the projected winner. He defeats Democrat Scott Sifton in the race to succeed retiring incumbent Roy Blunt. This seat was never really at risk for the Republicans, but Greitens is now officially projected to win. 2 more Republican wins put them at 37 seats to the Democrats' 40. Keep in mind, however, that the president's party has lost seats in the Senate in 14 out of the last 19 midterm elections. And even worse for Democrats, except for President Trump in 2018, no first-term president has gained seats in the Senate in over 70 years. We have got our first key race projection of the night, and it comes in Florida, where 2-term Republican incumbent and 2016 presidential candidate Marco Rubio is the projected winner. He defeats former Congresswoman Democrat Val Demings in a race between 2 very high-profile candidates. Rubio, however, has won by a very comfortable margin of almost 800,000 votes and 7.7 percentage points. This just so happens to be the exact margin of victory he had in 2016, and the incumbent will return to the upper chamber for another 6 years. 8 more states' polls are closing, including Arizona, Colorado, Kansas, Louisiana, New York, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. This is the last major poll closing of the night here at 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have some major projections to make right now. We have got 4 holds for the Republicans starting in Kansas. Incumbent Senator Jerry Moran will be reelected to a 3rd term. In Louisiana, John Kennedy, the Democrat turned Republican incumbent serving the state of Louisiana since 2017, is projected to win. Then, in North Dakota, Republican incumbent John Hoeven will return to the United States Senate for a 3rd term. He was reelected in 2016 with a whopping 78% of the vote. And in South Dakota, Republican incumbent John Thune has been reelected to another term in office. As for the Democrats, no surprise here, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer will win re-election to a 5th term in the Senate. However, it remains to be seen whether he will continue to serve the majority. We have also got a couple of races that are too close to call, starting in Arizona, undoubtedly one of the most critical races in these midterms. Incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly was elected to the Senate in 2020, but faces a very tough opponent in Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich. Different polls have shown both candidates with small leads coming into tonight, and both parties know that this seat could hold the key to who holds the Senate majority come 2023. Next, in the state of Colorado, Democratic incumbent Michael Bennet has consistently polled well ahead of his Republican opponent, former Olympian Eli Bramer, but this race is still too early to call. Finally, in Wisconsin, another race that could decide which party wins the majority. Incumbent Republican Ron Johnson was one of the last senators to make a decision on whether he would run for re-election. He faces the sitting lieutenant governor of Wisconsin, the progressive Mandela Barnes, whose fundraising totals have been off the charts throughout this cycle. Irregardless, this is an absolute must-hold for Republicans if they hope to meet expectations in these midterms. And with 4 more projected wins, the Republicans have now taken a 1-seat lead in the race for 51. They are now projected to have at least 42 seats in the Senate, compared to the Democrats' 41. Polls do remain open in only 9 states, while another 8 races are currently too close to call. And we've got a call to make in Ohio. Former state treasurer Republican Josh Mandel has defeated Congressman Tim Ryan. This is a big but expected hold for the Republican Party, as they will hold on to the seat currently held by retiring Senator Rob Portman. Mandel has defeated Ryan by 7.8 percentage points and over 400,000 votes, a slightly smaller margin than former President Donald Trump's margin of victory in 2020. The Democratic Party was clearly hoping that Tim Ryan was the perfect candidate to swing Ohio back in the Democrats' direction, but he ultimately did not even receive a higher percentage of the vote than Joe Biden. We have reached the top of the hour, 10 p.m. here on the East Coast, and the polls are closing in Iowa, Nevada, and Utah. Mike Lee, the 2-term Republican incumbent, is projected to win re-election in the state of Utah, defeating independent challenger Evan McMullin, who notably received 20% of the vote in Utah during the 2016 presidential election. We can also make a key race projection in Colorado, where Democratic incumbent Michael Bennet will be re-elected to a 3rd term in the Senate. He defeats Republican Eli Bramer in a race that was never really in doubt. Bennet receives 52.8% of the vote to Bramer's 43.5%, and wins by a margin of almost 300,000 votes. The state of Colorado has now gone blue in every major statewide race since 2014. Moving on, the state of Iowa is too early to call. Incumbent 89-year-old Senator Chuck Grassley is running for an 8th term in the United States Senate, against former Congresswoman Abby Finkenauer, who criticized Grassley for not taking a very strong stance against the 2021 insurrection at the United States Capitol, citing his vote against an independent commission to investigate the attack. Grassley, though, has not received less than 60% of the vote in any election since 1980. However, he only received 60.1% of the vote in 2016, his lowest share since 1984. The state of Nevada is also too early to call. First-term incumbent Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto is seeking re-election after first being elected to the Senate with just 47.1% of the vote in 2016. On the Republican side, former Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt is running for the seat once held by his grandfather, Paul Laxalt. Polls have shown an extremely close race here, with Republicans funneling tons of money into picking up this seat. With that said, though, let's take another look at the Senate map, where the GOP now holds 44 seats to the Democrats' 42. However, neither party has made any gains thus far, as several key races remain too close to call. We are now able to make a call in the state of Iowa. Chuck Grassley will be reelected to an 8th term and become the most senior senator upon Patrick Leahy's retirement. Grassley defeats Democrat Abby Finkenauer, albeit by the lowest margin since he was first elected to the Senate in 1980. He has received 54.6% of the vote and wins by a little below 200,000 votes. And with that, Republicans have now held on to their red wall in Ohio and now Iowa. Polls are closing across the West Coast here at 11 p.m. Eastern in California, Hawaii, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. And we've got projections to make in each of these states as well. In California, Alex Padilla, the Democrat appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom to fill the vacancy left by Vice President Kamala Harris, is projected to be elected to his first full 6-year term in the Senate. And in Hawaii, popular incumbent Brian Schatz will be reelected to a second full term. He won with 73.6% of the vote in 2016. Then in Oregon, 4-term Democrat Ron Wyden has been reelected, defeating Republican Jason Beebe. And in Washington, another Democratic incumbent, Patty Murray, is projected to win a 6th term in office, defeating Republican nurse Tiffany Smiley. The Republican Party will also hold on to their seat in the state of Idaho, where 4-term Republican incumbent Mike Crapo is the projected winner there. That puts Republicans and Democrats on even footing at 46 seats each, while 7 races are too close to call and the polls are yet to close in the state of Alaska. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada are the states everybody seems to have their eyes on at this moment, and the belief within the RNC, per sources, is that if they win any of these 3 seats, they will take control of the United States Senate. We have got our first really major projection of the night. We at EP Official can now call New Hampshire for the incumbent Democrat Maggie Hassan. The Democratic Party has held on to one of their most vulnerable seats as Senator Hassan defeats Republican Chuck Morse by a little over 3 percentage points and 23,000 votes. Governor Chris Sununu's decision to not run for this seat left the GOP scrambling for a sub-tier candidate and ultimately proved to be a fatal setback as they miss out on an opportunity to send a Republican senator from New Hampshire back to the Senate for the first time since 2010. We have another projection, though, out of the state of North Carolina. Congressman Ted Budd has been elected to the United States Senate, succeeding the retiring incumbent Richard Burr. Despite this being an open seat, Republicans never really seem to lose their grasp on the race in North Carolina, and Burr has defeated Democrat Cheri Beasley by exactly 4 percentage points. The margin of victory is a little over 200,000 votes, a much wider margin than Donald Trump had in 2020. And with these two seats being held by each respective party, they remain even at 47 seats each. Neither party has still yet to gain a seat, but only 5 states are now too close to call, and fewer votes remain outstanding in Georgia and Pennsylvania. EP official can project that incumbent Senator Ron Johnson has defeated Democrat Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. Johnson initially pledged to retire in 2022, but later accused the Democratic Party's policymaking as making his re-election bid necessary. His incumbency certainly played a major role in holding the seat for the GOP, as Johnson wins by 2 percentage points and 60,000 votes. This is his smallest margin of victory yet, but the Republican Party won't care as they have shored up another key seat. We can also make a call in the state of Georgia, where the Senate election will once again go to a runoff scheduled for January 4th, 2023. With 99% of the estimated vote in, Herschel Walker has received 49.1% of the vote, compared to incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock's 48.4%. Neither candidate received more than 50% of the vote, meaning they will face each other one-on-one in January. Warnock defeated Kelly Loeffler in the 2022 special election runoff in Georgia, but he'll need to gain approximately 33,000 votes on Walker in 2023. So with both of these projections, Ron Johnson's win in Wisconsin gives the Republican Party a 1-seat edge. They hold 48 seats to the Democrats' 47. And with a runoff election now scheduled in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona are the only races too close to call, while the polls remain open in the state of Alaska. Reportedly, the RNC is touting their chances of taking control of the Senate more and more the later it gets tonight. It's officially time for our final poll closing in the state of Alaska here at 1 a.m. Eastern on the East Coast. We do not have a projection to make here right on closing, but a key race alert is coming in right now. It is too close to call in what is essentially a three-way race in Alaska between incumbent Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, her Trump-endorsed Republican challenger Kelly Tshibaka, and Democratic State Senator Elvie Gray Jackson. This is the first U.S. Senate election held in Alaska under a new election process, whereby all candidates competed in a nonpartisan blanket primary back in August, and the top 4 candidates advanced to the general election, which is being held tonight using ranked choice voting. However, it also sounds like we have a key race projection coming in right now. This is a big one. We project that sitting Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman has won the Senate race in Pennsylvania. The Democrat that many touted as invincible within the Keystone State has defeated Republican Mehmet Oz, commonly known as Dr. Oz, who becomes the latest celebrity figure to run an unsuccessful campaign for public office. Fetterman defeats Oz by a little over 1 percentage point and 70,000 votes. An impressive performance in a considerably redder national environment than 2 years ago when Biden only defeated Trump by 1.2 points and 80,000 votes. The state of Pennsylvania will now be represented by 2 Democratic senators in Congress, and Democrats have won every single major statewide race ever since former President Donald Trump's victory in 2016. Taking another look at the balance of power in the Senate, the two parties are now even once again at 48 seats each, but that was the first pickup of the night for either party, and surprisingly, it goes in favor of the Democrats. That does leave the GOP in a position where they must win 3 out of the 4 races yet to be decided in order to take control of the Senate. And keep in mind that the seats in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia are all currently held by Democratic incumbents. In a major victory for the Republican Party, they have flipped their first seat of the night. Mark Brnovich is projected to win the Senate race in Arizona. Former Attorney General of Arizona, Brnovich is the first Republican Senate candidate to pick up a seat for the GOP tonight, but he does so by an extremely slim margin of victory. Brnovich received 49.2% of the vote to Mark Kelly's 49.1%, and as things stand right now, he wins by less than 5,000 votes. Kelly defeated the unelected and woefully unpopular Republican incumbent Martha McSally by 2.4% in 2020. But he'll leave the Senate just 2 years later as Arizona reverts back to a split delegation in the upper chamber. We also have another projection to make in Nevada. Democratic incumbent Catherine Cortez Masto will hold on to her seat in a major victory for the Democratic Party. Cortez Masto defeats Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt by 1.3 percentage points and 16,000 votes, a smaller margin of victory than when she was first elected in 2016 by 2.4 points and 27,000 votes respectively. With Catherine Cortez Masto returning to the Senate for another 6 years, 2 of the 3 critical Sunbelt states have been split between the parties, leaving them each with a projected 49 seats. Now, assuming the race in Alaska goes to one of the Republicans, Murkowski or Chewbacca, it looks like the runoff in Georgia may decide control of the U.S. Senate for a second straight election. And we finally have a call to make in Alaska. Republican incumbent Lisa Murkowski has defended her seat from Trump-endorsed Republican challenger Kelly Tshibaka, and she will return to the Senate for a 4th 6-year term. Murkowski has solidified herself as one of the most moderate Republicans in the upper chamber over the last decade, and her cross-party appeal proved to be the decisive factor in this race. Let's take a look here at the initial vote tally. Again, this race will be decided via ranked choice voting between the 4 candidates that advance to the general election from the nonpartisan blanket primary. In this first round, Senator Murkowski received 37.7% of first-place votes, Tshibaka received 33.4%, and Democrat Elvie Gray Jackson received 23.6%. The 4th-place candidate, who received just 5.3% of the vote, did not push any of the top 3 above 50%, causing Gray Jackson to be removed in the 3rd round and her votes distributed between Murkowski and Tshibaka. As expected, an overwhelming majority of her supporters voted for Murkowski as their second-choice candidate, and here are the estimated final results. Lisa Murkowski received 58.2% of the overall vote, easily defeating Tshibaka in a blow to the right-wing bloc of the Senate, and the Alaska Republican Party's efforts to successfully recruit a challenge to Murkowski proved unsuccessful. Nevertheless, the Republicans are now projected to hold at least 50 seats in the Senate, and whether they will command the majority in 2023 will once again come down to the runoff in Georgia between Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. Democrats, on the other hand, will hope for a repeat of what occurred in 2021, while also recognizing that the national and state political environment is much different now. We can now make the most significant projection of these midterms. The Republican Party has won control of the United States Senate, just 2 years after a colossal disaster in the 2021 Georgia Senate runoffs, which handed Democrats a trifecta, both control of the presidency, the Senate, and the House. Republicans have retaken control of the upper chamber because of the projection we can make in the Georgia Senate runoff. Republican Herschel Walker has defeated Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock, handing the Democratic Party a fatal blow. A former NFL player, Walker came under fire throughout this cycle for having no real political experience, but it ultimately did not matter as he rode his popularity, high favorability ratings among even moderate Republicans, and both former President Donald Trump's and the Republican establishment's support for his campaign to a very narrow victory. He wins by less than half a percentage point and just 16,000 votes over the incumbent Warnock, who will now leave the Senate just 2 years after being elected with 51% of the vote in his 2021 runoff. And that gives the Republican Party 51 seats in the US Senate, enough to promote Mitch McConnell back to his position as majority leader and to demote Chuck Schumer. All things considered, the Republicans did not meet most expectations, as many believed they'd command a larger majority. However, that will not matter, as the Biden administration will now face whatever obstacles Senate Republicans wish to present before the 2024 general election. That is all for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think of this map and these predictions in the comment section down below. Also, make sure to follow me and EP Official on the social medias shown here and linked in the description down below. Also, feel free to like the video and hit that big red subscribe button if you haven't already. It's free and it helps me out tremendously. Check out more videos here, and going forward, I'm hoping to upload more consistently as 2022 campaigns start to ramp up, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss any future content. Until then, have a wonderful start to the new year, and I'll see you next time. EP out.